Good day to you. I'm sure you know people like I do who, if they don't have a cup of coffee in the morning, forget it. They're in a bad mood and they can't get things done. They've got to have a cup of coffee. Other people, they don't need a cup of coffee, they need a Coke. Still other people, they need a glass of water. Other people, they've got to have a shower in the morning and they've got to wake up slowly and they have to do some exercises before they do anything else. And they have to have some fruit or some granola or that cup of coffee. And then what they have to do is they have to take a moment to catch up on their social media before they do anything. People have a system to their day. They have a method for approaching their day and organizing their time with their day. And it's no different from a media system either. It's no different from the study of media. Media are set up as a system. And so that's the way that this book, for the rest of it, is going to proceed as we discuss this very theoretical but short chapter on elements of a media system, studying chapter 3 in this instructor video, trying to understand how the rest of the book and the rest of the course is going to be laid out, because that's what this chapter is doing for us. It's laying out the approach, the method, the organization of the rest of the book, the conceptual framework, if you will. And so we're going to take a look at media as a system. And a system is a collection of interrelated parts that make up a whole. You have systems all throughout your life. You have a water system in your house. So that water is coming in from somewhere, and you've got a main valve. And then you've got a bunch of smaller valves located at each toilet and each bathtub and each sink. Then you've got ways of controlling hot versus cold water. You've got ways of controlling whether that water comes up above, as in a shower, or whether it comes out of a spigot in a sink or outside. You have a system going on, and media are operating as a system as well. They're a collection of interrelated parts that make up a whole. And so we're going to study what those interrelated parts are. And so the first thing that we want to do is make the point that these interrelated parts are fundamental to the system. Without these parts, the system doesn't operate. And secondly, each individual element is related to each other individual element in the system. So if you move one around, the other gets affected. If you take away your coffee in the morning, then your productivity, another element of your day, gets affected if you're a coffee person. So each element is directly related to another element. Also, some elements have a greater influence on the overall system than other elements. They're stronger at a particular point in time. One of the elements that we'll be studying is going to be media content. And media content has a bigger influence on the entire system than some of the other elements that we're going to be studying. The media content is the focal point of a media system. Also, we can know that some elements may be needed to illuminate other elements. We may need to look at an element to have a window on another element. Again, media content, it holds true for this. We need to look at media content to eliminate the element of financing, how a media system is paid for. We need to look at content. Look at, are there advertisements in the content? That shows us this is how that content is being paid for. So one or more elements can illuminate other elements. Also, all of the elements need to be taken as a whole to make up the entire media system. And that's why we're studying media as a system, because we don't want to get caught just looking at a tree and not seeing the forest. And we don't want to get caught looking at a forest and not seeing the individual trees. We're trying to get a level of depth to our understanding. And that's why we're looking at media in Sweden and other countries by understanding media as a system. And so the final point about a media system is kind of like the very famous sports teams that you can think of in the history of whatever sport you like that's won championships. The sum of the parts is greater than the whole. So something about these particular elements in this particular media system make the media system unique, make it bigger than adding each individual part up. All right, so I've already mentioned how media content is central to what we're going to be doing when we study in this class media, but also in the elements of a media system. Media content is going to be very important. That's why when we get to media content in this class, we're going to spend extra time on it. We're going to look at quite a bit of Swedish media content in the classroom, and it's just one other element that's going to illustrate this whole media system. So before we get to the different elements that we're going to be studying, I also want to return to an earlier concept, the concept of a rhetorical perspective. Because a rhetorical perspective is how we are generating the elements of the media system. Because remember, what a rhetorical perspective is trying to do is it's not trying to pass judgment on any one country's media system. What a rhetorical perspective is trying to do is to come up with reasonable interpretations of meaning for the things that we're going to observe when we look at media systems. What are the meaningful, what are the reasonable expectations that we can have for why a certain TV show airs in a certain country and has certain content in it based on what we know about that country. That's what a rhetorical perspective is all about. So the elements have to exist in all countries so they can be applied fairly in all countries. The elements have to be flexible enough so that they can yield diverse interpretations. The elements have to be basic enough so that the conclusions are not obscured by too much detail, and there must be enough parity in the elements across all of the countries. So there has to be enough of a chunk of each one to study in each country to make this worthwhile. So here's what we come up with. This is the plan for the rest of the book. The elements of the media system are going to be, number one, cultural characteristics, which we're going to go to next, the cultural characteristics of a country, and that's going to then give rise to philosophies for a media system. That's the second element that we're going to discuss. And then that's going to give rise to regulation, and that's a third element. And then the fourth element we're going to discuss is financing, how media systems are paid for. And then fifthly, it's going to be accessibility of media. How easy is it to get to the media content? And then after that, we're going to get to media content as an element. We're going to study that. And then after that, we're going to go on to a specific kind of media content called news reporting. And then after that, we're going to focus on imports and exports, what comes into a country, what goes out of a country when it comes to their media products. And then finally, we're going to look at media audiences. Those are the elements that we're going to study. Now, to give them a very visual depiction, I have decided to take an overlay of a visual depiction of a tree and to use that to illustrate a media system. Because when you look at a tree, it does embody many of the same features that a media system itself has when you break it down according to elements. So when you look at a tree, the first thing that we use metaphorically is the soil around the tree is going to symbolize the cultural characteristics of a media system. The soil provides the nutrients. The soil provides the water. The soil provides the stability. The soil also is very hidden, right? You have to dig down into it to see what's below it. It takes work, excavation. And so cultural characteristics are like the soil surrounding a tree. We'll talk about cultural characteristics starting tomorrow. And then the next element of the tree is the root system, and I liken that to the second element, philosophies of a media system. The root system are pulling the nutrients from the soil, and the root system are setting up the direction of the tree and also providing its base. So philosophies for how our media system should be set up, I liken to the roots. Both philosophies and cultural characteristics are below eyesight, right? You have to dig to get to them. They're not easy. So we're going to do some intellectual work when we get to these two elements. Because after that, we pop above the ground. The next element we come to is regulation, which I liken to the trunk of a tree. Regulation are those laws put into effect. Mostly there are laws. There are other ways that you can have regulation, but mostly those laws put into effect by government agencies, which influence the operation of media. So a trunk is how I liken that stem of regulation. And then after that, we have financing as an element, which I liken to big branches. And so as the branches on the tree spread out, it's representing, those branches are representing who pays for the media. There's all kinds of ways, not just advertising, with there's subscription, there's government donation, there's allocation, there's a lot of different ways to pay for media. It's all in the financing. And then after that, we have smaller branches, right? Big branches to smaller branches. That's the accessibility of the media. How easy it, when you turn on your television, is it to get to the television channel that you want? Or do you have to pay extra for it? Or do you have to have cable or satellite? How accessible is the newspaper that you want when you go into the store? Accessibility is a big one as well. And then after accessibility, we get to media content. These are the leaves on the tree, right? When you look at a tree, what do you see? You see the leaves. For the most part, that's what dominates your attention. That's why I liken the media content of a media system to the leaves on a tree. When you look at a media system, you see the leaves, you see the media content first before you can get to studying the financing. And then after that, the next element that we have is news reporting. And those are special leaves. Those are leaves that tell you the state of the health of the tree. How healthy is that tree? Are the leaves do they have a special sheen, special color? Or are some dried out? Are some bigger than others? News reporting are special leaves. Then after that, we have the element of media imports and exports, represented by the seeds that come off the tree. So those media products that leave a country and go to another country and pick up root in another country, that's an example of media imports and exports. And then finally, we have media audiences as the last element. Those are the people that consume media, that go by, that pass by a tree. And you can't see the TV show that's with Showtime that you don't subscribe to because you don't subscribe to it. So it's analogous to a leaf that's way at the top, the other side of the tree. You don't see it. But this leaf right here, Channel 13, Blue Ridge Cable, because it's part of the basic cable package, that's really easy to reach. You know, this newspaper, the Pocono Record, because it's distributed free to students at ESU, it's a low-hanging leaf, right? But a leaf that's up here, like Time Magazine that you have to go purchase, or a film that you have to go see, or a song that you're trying to hear on the radio, that's represented by passing by the tree, and the media audience has the chance to look and observe what there is to pick. So this then wraps up this theoretical chapter. Now we're really ready to head into the nitty-gritty of getting to know media systems from these countries and eventually really, really focusing on Sweden. But we have the theoretical basis because we've broken down the elements that make up a media system. Have a great day.